Hello, friends, and welcome to yet another episode of all new Snap Judgments. Almost as always, I'm Roy Rogers, and joining me today is my friend and yours, CEO of the Snap Judgments Podcasting Network, the Space Worm Emperor of my heart and yours, the one, the only, Aaron Pulse Glazer. Glazer, my friend, how are you on this balmy dog day of summer?
I'm great. I'm a teacher again, so it's not summer in my head. So I'm doing great otherwise. As well.
It is also not summer in the sense of like my mental space, because students are back in my school. This is the end of the first week of school. But my body is experiencing summer again because global warming has delivered the hottest day of the year to the East Coast of the United States. Fun times. But Aaron, how was your vacation?
It was great. I went to Colombia last week. We had some great people replacing us. If you missed that episode, please make sure to check it out. They are better than we are.
Yes. But Aaron, who is joining us for the 65th episode of this podcast?
We've got two amazing guests for you, just like every week. We're going to begin with the great Spider-Jess. How you doing, Spider-Jess?
Hello. Welcome. Thanks for having me on, I should say first.
Absolutely a pleasure. Jess, if for anyone who doesn't know, and she's going to protest the second I say this, but you're not allowed to because it's just true, one of the best snappers in the world, genuinely an absolutely phenomenal and top-notch player, and we're happy to have her on. Jess, how could our friends watch you play really great Marvel Snap?
Well, first I have to actually be a great Marvel Snapper, even though I'm contesting it. I know you said I wasn't allowed. I'm doing it. We can find me at Twitch on Twitch TV/SpiderJess _AKA_JX5N. That will be the Twitch name for the remainder of the week. I know it gets changed. Long story. Don't worry about it. Or Twitter at SpiderJess_Snap.
And if you are having trouble finding any of that, we will have it in the show notes, and if you're watching on YouTube later on this video. We're also joined, we like giving really small up-and-coming YouTubers and streamers a chance. So there's this guy, Regis, who has just been really trying to get his name out there, and we wanted to help out. You know who he is. Come on, it's Regis Killbin.
Oh, thank you. I feel like everybody got these really epic intros, like best snap player in the world, and everything just sounded so epic. And here I am. I just feel, I'm just me. I'm just Regis.
All right, but there's a point later this episode where I promise I'm going to actually blow you up. So we're gonna save that for the time being. But you're gonna be like, oh God, wow. But that's later on. I got some nice things to say.
No, I don't deserve any nice things. Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm just giving you a hard time.
No, hard times are more than welcome. Did you not get the whole Space God Emperor thing that was thrown at me at the start of this episode?
That sounds like I didn't get anything close to that. So
fair. That was not a compliment. All right, Regis, should anyone be living in a tunnel and just discovering what Marvel Snap is, and this is their first Snap podcast, how could they find you?
Yeah, I'm on YouTube. I make Marvel Snap videos. I would just search Regis Marvel Snap, and it'll probably show up. I think that'll do the job.
Also, if you just type in Marvel Snap, he's probably going to be the first person that shows up.
Yeah, maybe. I try that sometimes, and I'm always surprised. It's like, oh man, I wish I was higher.
So, but it's giving you your algorithm, right?
That's
knows you're not searching for you.
It does push down your own content, so
that's true. You guys don't watch yourself on repeat for hours and hours a day.
All right, I'll let you in on a behind-the-scenes Snap Judgment fact. So I will sometimes log into my YouTube account and be like, oh, I should check to see what video Aaron has put up today. And it will have already shown up as watched in my previously watched on YouTube, because Glazer has gone into my YouTube account and watched and let the episode run in the background or just scrolled through it to get his watch. He is gaming the algorithm using my personal YouTube account.
Look,
all right.
The extra 4 views I can give myself matter. I swear. I don't know how.
Each bit that makes the robot move a little bit more is useful. Before we entirely lose the thread and we're not able to share the awesome insights of Jess, and Regis. Let me just remind our loyal listeners and loyal viewers how to engage with us on the various social medias. First and foremost, we are on Elon Musk's death site, formerly known as Twitter, sometimes known as X, at SnapJudgeCast. We're also incredibly grateful and incredibly proud to be the official podcasting partner of Marvel Snap Zone. Marvel Snap Zone is the premier website to go to get your Marvel Snap content. It's amazing. Glazer produces content. There are many of our favorite guests and people who took over our podcast, like Lauren and crew, are on Marvel Snap Zone. Please, please, please go there, support them, support us. Marvel Snap Zone is awesome. You can email us at snapjudgmentspodcast@gmail.com. But most importantly, our YouTube, where you probably are listening to this based on our numbers. You can find that at Snap Judgments Pod, where 6 out of 7 days a week, Glazer is producing daily Snap takes. That 7th day is this very podcast itself. So 7 days a week, excellent Marvel Snap content produced by Glazer. Aaron, if the loyal listeners of our podcast were to become our loyal viewers of our YouTube, what would they find on the YouTube right now?
So the current number one player is Derek. He plays as Havoc OP. He gave me the number one deck, and I don't think anyone else has it yet. So go find the number one deck.
That's really cool. One final thing, you should support us on Patreon. Snap Judgments on Patreon. That's how Glazer does the Snap Judgments League, which, according to my Discord notifications, Gunny T and Friends has opened up the next season for signups. So go support that if you enjoy competitive Snap. Because look, again, behind the scenes, Glazer spends an inordinate amount of his income on supporting the community. The way he justifies this to his wife and small child is your Patreon support. So by supporting the Patreon, you are supporting the community and justifying Glazer wasting more of his disposable income. So it's a win-win for everyone, everywhere. So support us on patreon.com/snapjudgments. All right, let's jump into it. We were not here, so we didn't get a chance to discuss speed. So I'm very happy to do that now. So the lesser of the less well-known, less well-received of Wanda's twins, we got Speed here. I don't even remember Speed's not codename. What is Speed's codename? Do you remember, Aaron?
Slow.
Not Billy.
Not Billy, yes. He's a 3/3, Series 5 card, ongoing, +1 power for each turn in which you spent all your energy. Jess, thoughts, feelings, takes on Speed.
Speed. It is one of the few cards I've actually skipped on the spotlights in the last few weeks. I hope I don't regret that, but I think I could do it comfortably. Like, comparing it to other 3-drops that exist, its raw stats cap out at like a 3.9. I want to say its average is around like a 3.6, 3.7, somewhere in between there. Most decks aren't floating that much. It's just like, I feel like I'd rather take a Gladiator over this card, and Gladiator isn't even being used so much in the meta currently. Yeah, I think it's like it still will have a place. Maybe Surfer can make some use out of it, but I don't know, this one was a skip for me. Sorry, guys.
There. Regis?
Yeah, I think that sums it up really well. By the way, I feel like I'm going to have no insights to offer. Like, Spider-Jess is so good. It's like coming to me and it's like, oh yeah, it's okay. But I think that is exactly where I'm at. It's a card. It's fine. It's harmless. Mostly harmless, perhaps, in the words of Douglas Adams. Like, I just, there's opportunity cost to overcome. It's like, yes, this is probably fine to put in your deck, but you might want to do more specific, more synergistic sort of things in most lists. And even if you're running just like a generic power 3, I think Cassandra Nova is still probably a preference for me, just because it feels a little more disruptive and high rolling against arishem in particular. So I just don't really see the use case or really the fun in this one either. I thought it was just kind of boring.
Right.
So I have more of a question. It's hard to disagree with both Regis and Jess. If you have a magic turn and you spend all of your energy on that turn, does the ongoing update at the end of the game?
Every turn.
Okay, that's so. All right, that is the one question I have about this. Like,
I didn't
that
know
is-
you meant the card magic. I thought you were
Yeah.
describing like a perfect
If
magical
you play
turn.
a magic card,
I mean, if
That too.
somehow you play Ragavon, Nimble Pilfler on no, yes, if on Magic, the X-Men character who creates a seventh turn, or
just natural limbo.
Natural Limbo. Okay, so you do get that. That's
Yeah.
all right. So there
I
you go.
I actually play this card way more than I thought I was going to. I was extremely low on this. I think it's fun. It's worse than Gladiator in most situations. Let's get that out of the way right at the start. You should not buy this card. I'm not telling anyone to go spend their tokens on it. But like the fun of this card for me is that its power is what it is whenever it is, but your opponent doesn't know how much they're trying to make up for throughout the course of the game. So am I playing around a 3-5 or a 3-7? And those are two sort of different things throughout the course of a Marvel Snap game. So I've had a decent amount of fun with this in decks that are just sort of filling their curves anyway, things that are running like Wiccan. You don't need the, again, like just run Gladiator, and you're losing nothing in anything but an edge case. But I do think it's a better and more interesting card than people are giving credit for, even if it's not something that anyone who isn't a whale should buy. Oh, also his name is Tommy. And it's taking literally all of my self-control not to just start talking about Douglas Adams.
There we go. Well, before we do that, I'm going to speed through the transition here and get us into Speed/Tommy's brother-in-law, Emperor Hulkling here. So Emperor Hulkling is a 6/11 Series 5 card, because, he is a big bad. All right. At the start of the game, copy the text of a random 6-cost card. Regis, thoughts about Hulkling here?
Well, I thought it was going to be pretty good. I was actually pretty high on this in like my preview card review stuff, but after having played it in a few different decks now, I just, it's that same opportunity cost conversation. I think it's totally fine, and it has that 11 power floor for a lot of situations. You're just kind of getting a big dumb body. It reminds me a little bit of like America Chavez, that turn 6 Chavez kind of thing that you had to rely on in the old days. So it's fine, and of course there are the high roll moments where you hit the awesome thing and you're really excited and you Galactus or Doctor Doom or whatever, Ultron or something. But it's just, I'd rather have a 6-drop that I can trust and I know it's going to work and I have a game plan that drives towards it. Whether that's just a generically big one like Red Hulk, or I think Goliath is common. If I'm planning to have priority all the time, I just want an Goliath instead. So it's fine. It's totally okay, and it is definitely more fun for me than Speed. I've enjoyed playing it, but I just don't see it carving out a spot for itself.
Jess?
For me, I got this card. This is a card like I've been excited for. Looking at like all the 6-drops available, there's like oftentimes that it can hit something very good, and I think the fact that if it hits something bad, it's just basically not playing anything. Like if it hits Giganto, if it hits Hulk, it just still comes down as a big body. I think it's going to be hard to fit in decks because of its consistency. You're basically going to have a deck that can fill out a high cost card as a tech slot almost. It's interesting to see where it's going to go. I haven't been able to see what the decks people have been playing with it yet. First few games I played with it were arishem, and I liked it so far because you don't have to rely on a consistent 6-drop for it to be available, and then you just play it when it high rolls.
Reasonable. Roy, any Hulkling thoughts?
I have a question before I have some Hulkling thoughts. Can Hulkling still hit Hulkling, or
this OTA? No.
Okay, good. They fixed that. Okay, because that was very sad. I felt sad for every person who tried Hulkling and that happened to them.
Hulkling can also seemingly not hit Agatha and Thanos. That's still correct, right?
It makes sense.
I mean,
I've never hit either one. I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't tried it today though.
I'm pretty sure, unless they changed it, Agatha and Thanos were the other non-hits.
I can definitely see Thanos because that does a bunch of weird stuff and it's just a 6/11 also, right? Or what's Thanos currently? 6/11? 6/10. He's 6/10. So what's the point? And then I wouldn't mind Agatha. I think hitting Agatha is really funny, but that's just me. Maybe I have a cruelty in me. I think we talked about this card a lot in the episode we did this. I still am underwhelmed. I'm not spending Spotlight Caches because I feel like I'll be spending a lot of Spotlight Caches next month when we get to the Spider-Man cards. Like, I'm kind of hoarding resources for that month. But, like, Teddy here is pretty cool. Although I'm a little I kind of get what they're going for with this card, right? Like, Teddy's like a super scroll, right? He can change shape and sort of like gain powers and stuff like that. But I wish it had tighter synergy with Wiccan. Like, I really wish they had like come up with kind of a build your own, spend all your energy deck that like Teddy could have been a cool top end of, and sort of combine sort of that little like family unit there of the twins plus Billy's husband. Like, I think that would have been really cool. Instead, like, I think he's just like a weirdly generically good card that is kind of like one of these cards they've been coming out with, which Speed is also one of these that's like not bad, but not so great it's necessarily important to spend resources on. And since the only way to acquire cards is to spend premium resources at this point in the form of spotlight keys or tokens, once you're series 3 complete, like, this card is just like, it feels like it's just filler for when you're opening spotlight caches, and the fourth, that one that like gives you a random card that you're gonna have a hit that you're not gonna be upset that you got Hulkling. Like, I wouldn't be sad if when I go to open for Madam Web that this is the card that I hit, but I'm also not gonna be like, oh my god, this is a card I'm so excited that wasn't in my collection that I had before. So it's just kind of this sadly dud of a card for me, even though like I really love this character. Both like his history through Marvel is really cool. He's like an important character in sort of how Marvel is presenting itself here in the 21st century. So I just wish this card had been a little bit more juiced.
So I've said this before, but I think the problem is that this costs 6 because decks only run, like, decks either run a specific 6, the 6 that they need to make their deck work, think null, or decks run 1 or 2 6s that are just generically good. If you're running 1 or 2 6s that are generically good, that's always going to be the same 1 or 2 6s. It has to be generically good. It has to be generically the best 6. And right now, that's Goliath, and then probably either Magneto or Red Hulk. Unless Emperor Hulkling can top those, it doesn't really have a home. That said, I didn't find, Orsted found a really, really cool home for it. Emperor Hulkling is absolutely amazing in Phoenix Force. Just, like, phenomenally good in Phoenix Force. So if you like Phoenix Force, I think that's the only time you really want to, like, strongly consider this card. Phoenix Force has, like, 5 6s it wants to run, but it can run exactly 1. Usually Zola, but it's not sad to hit Tribunal. It's not sad to hit Galactus because it's a Nimrod deck, right? It's not sad to hit just like Heimdall is just all of a sudden a great hit if your Emperor Hulkling hits that and you're playing Phoenix Force. Getting an extra shot at a Zola draw, a 6/11 Zola, is something you're pretty thrilled to have. Like, there's just all of a sudden Taskmaster. We'll get to that in a minute, but all of a sudden Taskmaster to copy a giant Human Torch type play is now an amazing thing you can do with Emperor Hulkling. Emperor Hulkling in Phoenix Force is like both super fun and really, really interesting, and it hasn't changed my perspective on the card, but it's made it go from a card that was really kind of frustrating me to a card that I'm now having at least fun with.
All right, the big one. All right, the OTA. I think this has been a busy week for me. Again, first week of school, so I've been sort of like dipping out. But my social media feeds popped off when this OTA went up. I think this is one of the more controversial in a negative way OTAs we've had in a while. We'll start with Loki over here. So Loki is now a 2/2 with on reveal, replace your deck with your opponent's starting deck. Give those cards -1 cost. So not only has his cost been reduced and his strength reduced, the card draw is gone. Jess, are we finally calling Loki a puny god? Or has Loki just gotten even more busted now that he's a 2 cost? Where are we, Jess?
I think this isn't going to do too much. I think he's pretty much going to be right where he was before the OTA. They're just taking away the card draw, because I know people were kind of taking advantage of that and even bouncing Loki to get more cards in the deck. But I think the whole thing was that he was basically capped at the amount of cards that he can steal by the whole revert and revision to him initially. So he was capped at stealing 4 cards. He's still pretty much doing the same thing. He's just has to be played on 2. So I don't know if it's actually going to really change much to him. You just have to play him earlier. It's like if you play him later, it's less rewarding to play him later, kind of thing.
Boy, I'm not the biggest Loki player, I'll say. I got kind of sick of Loki, and I feel like it as a content creator, it steals your videos because every game just becomes like about Loki and playing your opponent's deck. So it's hard to do like fun thematic content. So I don't really speak from a big area of expertise here, but my instincts kind of suggest, from when I have played a little bit of Loki here and there, I feel like you need cards beyond the Loki cards. Like you have to fill in your curve a little bit with some of your own stuff. And I guess just losing that card draw means you have just a little bit less of your own stuff. Because you're suddenly drawing that Loki card next turn instead of like one of your own cards, earlier, and you get it. So that and the smaller body too. I feel like this is going to be impactful. I hope anyway. I'm so sick of Loki, but I that's just a guess. I really don't know.
He's the exact same number of cards he was before, which is, I think, important if you play him on curve. But any other turn, I think he's
you
less.
Lose one of your own cards is what I'm getting at.
100%. I only played against him once, and it was Arishem, and they played him on turn 1, and like that's the exact same thing as playing him on turn 2, but it felt exponentially worse. So I didn't like that. I don't know. This is still probably very good, but I don't think it's like as good because the size of the body matters.
I mean, and the card draw. I think, to me, that's like, it's not like card neutral like it was before, right? Like now it's, you play a card, your hand is down a card. And that's, I think, a big deal. I think in the history of Marvel Snap, I've been playing since October of the launch year when it went public. Is there any card that Second Dinner like so desperately wants players to play, even if it's problematic? Like they are constantly like trying to find a version of the Loki effect that is like balanced, quote unquote, and missing the mark. Like when they changed Loki before, I was like, we got to hold off. It just feels like a very different card than the previous Loki. It could be really powerful, could be really crappy. It ended up being really powerful. I think in some ways maybe more powerful than the original Loki design. This new one, I do think is in many ways a downgrade, mostly to me because of the lack of a card draw. But shaving a third off the cost is a huge thing, right? Anytime they reduce a cost, that is really big deal. And the ability of Arishem to play it on turn 1, and then some ways that kind of like brings half a card into the draw, like you're seeing a lot more of the deck you created, is like really powerful. I think but reducing Loki's power to 2 makes it so that like Loki's body is now kind of worthless. So you really are only playing this card for the effect. And that I do think makes the card weaker, but I don't know if it's significantly weaker. I'm kind of excited to see if this finally is the change that brings Loki into a line where like Loki enjoyers can continue to play everybody's favorite Tom Hiddleston clone, but the rest of us can kind of like live our lives and only see Loki occasionally in the ladder or in Conquest. But I don't know, it's still busted. Like the core effect is still very, very powerful. Like replacing your deck with your opponent's cards and them all costing 1 less is still just a really powerful effect. Even if at a cost of a 2/2 body, which is kind of shit. So I'm interested to see where this card goes.
I always thought it'd be cool if you went back to the original version of Loki, like the one that did your hand, but all the cards were silenced, like they were textless.
Oh,
Because that's like mirages, like he's a trickster. They're not real cards, you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
they'd still have a discount. They'd still be a little bit above rate on stats, but like on reveals and bonuses would go away. It would feel like really flavorful for me from a Loki standpoint, but they never tried that.
It's a cool design.
that is a
My
cool design.
idea for a Loki change was kind of like, I don't think it's something they'll ever end up trying because it's like they'd have to completely rechange the card. But I thought it would always be cool if like he stole from a set pool of cards, kind of like how Kate Bishop, you steal 2 of 4 arrows. Like, let's say he steals out of a pool of 12 Loki tricks or something like that. I always thought something like that would be cool. Then be changing his hand into like pseudo cards that you can't really get elsewhere.
Makes sense to me.
We've seen how powerful Kate is, so that's definitely
Yeah,
interesting.
I always thought that was an interesting idea, but I don't know how, if that's a direction they would ever go in for it.
I also like that Loki is one of the young Avengers in the comic run that this season is based on. And they're like, what do we do with it? All throughout this season. Like, good timing on finally changing Loki significantly in the middle of the like most thematically relevant season.
Was this the same time as Loki's season he was released in?
September.
Is it next month?
Yeah, so
September?
it's next month. Mhm.
It's next month. Okay. That'd just be pretty funny. All right. Let's talk about... we're going to start with Glazer here because I know he has really strong opinions about Beast. So, this Beast change. Beast is now a 3/5. Same text, but now a 3/5. Glazer?
All right. So I've been told by a few people that they're not sure how much of a nerf this is. I think this is a huge nerf. Spending your turn 5 on Beast is sort of when you want to be playing it now, and being able to play less stuff and do less stuff with that is actually a huge problem. My real frustration, though, and this is going to be the one time that, like, I know Second Dinner takes a lot of heat for a lot of stuff. I'm not actually upset with them about anything but this one real specific thing right now. And that one real specific thing is I really hate, because it seems like they keep nerfing Beast to make us get pay cards. Beast is a Series 3 card, a card you get for free, right? And the last time they nerfed him, and they nerfed the crap out of him, it was a huge nerf to take away that from the rest of the game was when they made Black Swan. Because basically, when they were together, there was no reason to play Black Swan because you had Beast. Or at least in many of the decks that Black Swan was being played at the time. There was no real purpose because Beast did the same thing but better. Right? Like, Beast was Black Swan plus Falcon. Not exactly, but close enough. And, like, so they changed it, right? And now we have another bounce card that's, spoiler, we'll talk about it in a few minutes, going to be a 2-cost card coming in a month. And now Beast all of a sudden is a 3/5 instead of the 2/2 he was. Because, again, like, you would, even if you ran both, Beast is still a better card because cost reduction is better than a little bit of extra power. So, like, I really, 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 like, I love Beast. Bounce is my favorite thing. I hate that they nerfed this. But Bounce was really good, so I actually understand why making Bounce a little bit worse right now makes sense. I just wish they would stop changing free cards to make pay cards better. I think that's a really frustrating experience.
Thoughts, Regis?
Yeah, well, number one, I agree with you. I always felt like the more expensive Beast was, it just got too clunky in those middle turns. I always thought it was like a small brain problem. Like, I just wasn't smart enough. But it sounds like you think it's a problem too, so that makes me feel better. And yeah, on the monetization side of things, it is frustrating, I think, particularly with this like big gap. If they're gonna do it, at least do it right before the card comes out, not with a month and make people suffer for a month in between. I don't know when exactly Toxin hits, but it's a while away, I think. On that note, we'll probably talk about this a little more too, but like Cannonball got buffed the day of a Spotlight Cache, and Atuma got buffed, with Nimrod's in the Spotlight Cache, and like Atuma Nimrod's now a really interesting little 2-card pair. It's just hard to look at that and separate the notion that a lot of these decisions are being made for monetization reasons. And like, I know a lot of people will debate that and come up with counter examples as well, but it's really hard to look at that and turn a blind eye, and it kind of reads poorly no matter what the reason is. And I can understand a lot of people getting frustrated by that, myself included, I think.
When they make things stronger, I'm less frustrated than when they make things weaker, right? Like, don't take, like, if you want to make things better, I mean, I guess I'll live, right? Like, all right, you made my free card Atuma better, and maybe I need to spend money to get, like, maximize that. But, like, to say I'm giving you something for money, you have something just as good as right now for free already. No, you don't. It's just, like, extra icky to me.
Jess?
I feel like I'm gonna start going down a trail of monetization, so I'm gonna keep it to the cards. I do think, like, yeah, this change, like, is Beast really going to be played a lot once Toxin comes out is the question, and I think it's more, it could be played alongside Toxin, but I'm hoping that the case is you don't need Toxin to still be able to play Bounce after this change, because then that would be pushing you towards buying a card just so you can play an archetype. Like, I'm hoping that this change allows Bounce to still be playable and strong. Like, I do think Bounce was becoming a very, very strong archetype once again, one of the best, and they probably didn't want to just bring it down a little bit.
All right. Taskmaster. Jess, thoughts, feelings, opinions on Taskmaster becoming a 6-cost goofball?
I know negative players are going to keep running him and loving it. But yeah, that does kind of like hurt what, like, Shuri decks that would still run him. I'm not sure where else Taskmaster gets played outside of like Shuri negative type of things, but definitely hurting the card, and I don't entirely understand why they had to go and like target Taskmaster.
I think I know why.
There's also Ravonna into Sage into
Mhm.
Taskmaster, which is a 6-cost combo that's now 7. I think that's a negative list sometimes, but then also outside of that as well, which was sometimes pretty gross with, you know, Wong, etc. But yeah, I'm on the Shuri side of things. Like, a ton of players, budget players in particular, and people who've been playing the game forever, they just run Shuri Red Skull and they don't care, and we never see them. We never talk about them, but they used to climb every season. I hear about it anytime I showcase like a Shuri or Red Skull deck on YouTube. It's like, I've been playing this for the last year. I don't care. I don't play anything else. And it's like, those decks are now going to suffer because you love Taskmaster on 5 into a 1-drop, like a Silenced Ebony Maw or whatever it is. And that goes away, and I think that's really sad. Again, a kind of casualty here. And I think reading the OTA, they teased that this was like for the future anyway. There was like some future combo that's going to break Taskmaster, not even stuff that's happening nowadays, which makes it even more frustrating.
So the combo is almost certainly Symbiote Spider-Man, the 2/6 activate thing, the 4/6 activate that combines to a card. That on a Black Panther is a 28
my
power
God.
card, and then you can just double 28 with those two. So that's the working assumption as we've been theory crafting out from what we know. But like, it's almost certainly, if not that specific Symbiote Spider-Man problem, it's that Symbiote Spider-Man, because it re-triggers on reveals, is redoubling something that gets too big to then Taskmaster, because it breaks the, like, I have to play this in the right order combo because of activate.
Interesting. And Symbiote Spider-Man is the season pass card in a week?
Yep.
Okay. Well, interesting. Yeah, I don't really have strong opinions about this. Everybody, yeah, what everybody said there is true. I'm gonna throw Cannonball just like as an open. Does anyone have any comments about whether or not Cannonball's strength going up 1 is a revolutionary change or not a revolutionary change, or are we just like giving it the thumbs up?
Yeah,
it's always good for cards to be strong.
He's gonna be pretty much the same. Just giving him a little extra boost, I guess.
Yeah. I also think it's wild. Atuma, who now is a 4/10, and says, after each turn, destroy one of your cards here with less power. This like idea of like 4/10s that just like have a minor drawback. This one is probably one of the stronger of the drawbacks, but still relatively minor now versus like always killing himself. it's just also, I guess, 410 is just a stat that cards have now. Like, just is like regularly going to happen. But I think putting him in line with the other 410s is pretty unobjectionable change. Unless somebody here is a big like Atuma combo deck player and is very sad that I don't know, something that Atuma, I don't know, in Destroy. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I had a lot of fun with it today. Atuma into Nimrod felt really cool. It's just like you get a nice 410, and the Nimrod's a great follow-up, and you just start throwing Nimrods all over the board. It's kind of like a different spin on than Shuri, and still allows you to do interesting things with other Destroy synergies. Ultimately, the card's just way more interesting to me like this. Like, it's doing the same sort of vibe and story here, but in the fantasy of it, but it actually has some use cases. I don't know if it'll be good necessarily, at least not yet, but it's more cool. It's more dynamic.
I mean, they gave us a free card.
Yeah, Atuma,
right? Like,
Atuma playable.
Yeah, like this was a card that didn't exist for the past, since, I don't know, 2 months after it came out. Like, no one ran it. It was one of the least played cards in the game, and now it's a card that we'll see play. They gave us a new card. I think that's very cool. Like, as much as I'm annoyed at the Beast thing, this is like the counter to that. I hope it has more homes than just the Nimrod. I think it might. I think the Big Dumb Idiot Scar style deck is going to be perfectly fine with this, because what are you going to destroy in that, right? Like, the armor? Obviously not, right? So, like, I think that kind of deck will be perfectly happy to run this. I think this is going to be real.
Yeah, the other Big Dumb Idiots dodge the destroy, so it's perfect.
Yeah, Atuma is actually like usable now. Yeah, we got a new card, like you were saying. But I think that's one of the changes I was most like excited for when I saw this OTA, is all the shenanigans can do with Atuma now. Also, having another destroy agent is huge for a lot of decks. The only thing you could really use Atuma for was like playing him in a deck with like armor and Prof X, which doesn't exist, and using him in a destroy deck just to die to make null bigger and death cheaper.
But then you could Phoenix Force him back, and then he would immediately die again. It was really terrible, but fun.
Any thoughts about Destroyer? Like, I
don't know yet.
It's definitely a more interesting card, I think, at this point. Like, or less interesting?
Different interesting.
Yes.
Anyone have any strong Destroyer thoughts?
I was a big Spectrum Destroyer fan when I started playing Marvel Snap, but I think this is like, it's definitely better for him. It's gonna be more uses. I just don't know. It's not gonna be anything game breaking. Like, he's more playable now.
So, like, but before I wanted to use him in one lane, and then I wanted the other lane to be Professor X or Armored. And now I want to use him in one lane, and I want the other lane to be Professor X or Armored, except I can't play him on my Cosmo. Well, I guess I can still play him on Cosmo. He's still.
You can still play him on Cosmo.
He's just smaller.
He's just smaller.
Yeah, he's just smaller.
Hey.
So, like, I don't know how much of his gameplay has changed, except he's smaller. Like, I can't figure anything.
Also, before I wanted him in my non-Nimrod lane, and now I still want him in my non-Nimrod lane. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. I'm sure the true degenerates out there will figure out something cooler to do with Destroyer. But I think this is going to be the most controversial, and this is a big change. The last one, Copycat, now actually only copies and doesn't steal. So, Jess, thoughts about Copycat? Now, copying, not stealing the text of your opponent's cards.
That's a huge change. I think before, when she was stealing a card, she was almost like, you almost had to, she was like coming slottable in almost every deck because of that. Copying a card, like, she's still going to be good. It's just, yeah, it's like she was auto spider-hamming a random card. Like, it gave you a lot of information just from knowing what the card was. Which I guess you're still getting the information, but just knowing you don't have to worry about it ever. Like, if there's something that happens that shuffles their deck or whatnot, like, you just know the card's gone entirely, whereas now you know it can still come at you.
Yeah, I guess my question for this one was, like, as I think back, how many times was I shuffling their deck in some way, or locations doing it? Like, that's how much worse the card gets, right? If it's 5% of the time their deck is getting shuffled, it's like worse in 5% of matchups. Because if the deck's not getting shuffled, it's still, you get that knowledge it's the bottom card. You're never dealing with it still. So I mean, I know some decks do that with Copycat, like Korgs and Rock Slides and so on, shuffling in rocks and stuff. But I don't have that number, though. I don't know how often decks are doing that to themselves or locations are doing it. So, if it's 3% of games, it's probably still a really great card. If it's somehow 20-25% of games, like, it's a little scarier.
Definitely worse than Zemo now.
No. What?
Guess you don't think it's worse than Zemo?
No.
It's significantly better card than Zemo. Way better than Zemo.
Like,
No, not better than Zemo. I said worse in Zemo.
Oh, worse in Zemo.
oh,
In
yeah.
Zemo.
Oh, yeah.
I thought you said worse than too.
It's
yeah,
worse.
no, it's worse in Zemo, and it's worse in Darkhawk decks, in Rock decks, right?
Yeah.
Like those are outside of those decks, it's the same card.
Yeah.
Like people are gonna act like it's a different card, right? But like it's not. If you're not shuffling now, I think the big difference is you don't really want to shuffle their deck, right? Because now you know what their bottom card is and they don't, which means you know what they won't draw, which is the same thing more or less as them. You know what I mean? Not having that ability. So, like, you don't really want to play in decks that shuffle versus before where you really would love that because you wanted them to draw the same.
It was also really funny to find out they didn't realize how many effects in their own game caused their deck to shuffle, like players' decks to shuffle. That was a very funny thing for them to admit in the OTA. It's like, oh yeah, we didn't realize that this rock mechanic we have that we've pushed with Darkhawk.
They
decks a
just
lot.
randomly release cards that make Darkhawk better like once or twice a month. It's amazing. They're like, arishem, sure, Darkhawk's better. You know what the counter to arishem is? Another card that makes Darkhawk better. Let's keep it going. Copycat, let's make Darkhawk a little better.
Yeah, they have to sell their big, expensive Darkhawk bundles somehow.
It's
true.
3 times value, baby.
I heard a great conspiracy with Copycat that they couldn't figure out how to remove the bug where the sound triggered. So they're like, screw this, we can't fix the bug. We're just gonna change the text.
That would be
That's a pretty reasonable conspiracy theory.
Yeah,
That's definitely in
the dinner conspiracy
there.
Cool.
Any other general thoughts about the OTA here as a whole before we move into other pre-TAs that we're going to talk about?
Let's do net positive, net negative.
Ooh. All right. Jess, net positive, net negative.
What is this question?
The OTA overall, do you think this is a net positive or a net negative for the game?
I think it's net positive. I think it's good. Good direction they're going in.
Regis?
I think net positive because I think Loki's notably worse. I think that's going to be a great change for a lot of people.
Right.
I think it is net positive, but it's definitely the least positive an OTA has been in a while. That's how I would put it. There's more drawbacks to this one than there have been to some of the other recent OTAs.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think almost everything they've done lately has been a home run, and this is like a solid single. All right, let's talk about some new cards. And I have a slightly different thing I want to do with these. So we're going to talk about some changed cards and then some newly datamined cards. So for the changed cards, we don't have to do a full review. Obviously, anything you want to say, feel free to. But I want to look at what I think what the changes in these cards is telling us about them. Does that make sense to everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I want Madame Web is the first card we're going to talk about. She is still a ongoing. You can move one of your other cards away from here each turn. She was a 2/3. Now she's a 2/1. I think part of the reason we're starting with her is because this is a fairly freaking obvious one. What does that tell us?
She was too good, but maybe not so much too good that she didn't go to 3 cost. See, there's a level to it.
Wait, she had a different text before this?
Nope, just 2/3.
Oh, 2/3. Yeah. This is a card I'm really excited for. Being able to move more cards away you could probably leave her at no power, negative power. It'll still be a good card.
Yeah, this tells me this card's still busted. Like, I think it want like saying this is a 2-1, although again, it being a 2-1, there's now Ravona synergy, so who knows? Like, that's not always like a drawback, right? Like, not saying that there's a Ravona move deck out there necessarily naturally, but there could be. Dagger, yeah.
Taskmaster.
There we go. Taskmaster. There we go. Still busted. I think like 1 power, it's like, okay, it was definitely cracked at 3. Like, just straightforward. Here, like, they're at a point where like it's a acceptable risk, I think, is what this signals to me. Like, they are definitely like, all right, we want people to spend spotlight keys on this card or tokens. So we don't want to make it like dead on arrival. But we want to make it so we don't have to change it right away. And I think this is where we are. But I bet this is going to become 3 cost within some OTA, maybe in October.
It's so hard for me to imagine this not being one of the best cards in the game.
Yep.
Like, I want this card so bad until the second other people have it. Can just I have this card?
Yeah, September is going to be a wild month with cards
Yeah.
flying around everywhere.
Can I say something controversial?
Yeah.
I don't think move is I don't think move being good is good for Marvel Snap.
Agree.
I think it's really frustrating to play against. I think it's kind of frustrating to play. It's like you got to do a lot more fiddling literally with your fingers, like just manipulations, and like when you're playing on a phone, you just want to kind of chill and turn off your brain and zone out. It's what a lot of Marvel Snap players want to do. Of course, some of you are very high level players. You guys like to do all the craziness of, you like to big brain, and I know, but a lot of us small brain people.
Okay, wait, time out. Your small brain ideas are, I just want to do 8,000 combos. I don't care if I win, but there's going to be 8,000 combos in this video. None of that's small brain. It's every bit as complicated. You just don't care about the number at the end.
Sure, that's true. That's true. I don't care about how good it is. But I think Second Dinner maybe already is, or perhaps will be hesitant to let these cards be very good for very long. I could see a move meta tanking engagement in Marvel Snap pretty quickly overall.
So my worry isn't even necessarily only the move meta, just games where my opponent can move a card and I can't figure out where to play my power every single damn turn. It just sounds like a nightmare, right? Like, how annoying is the last turn when your opponent has like a Jeff and a Vision or a Jeff and a Nocturne on the board? And you're like, well, if I put 6 here but 7 there, and like that's obnoxious. But like, you do that with Mana Web, and any card in that location can be that. And you're just like, well, they can move 4, 5, or 6 to that location, and then they could play any of these other 7 cards. It's like, what?
That's true. I think one of the most satisfying elements of Marvel Snap is when it feels like a little bit solvable and you kind of know what you're doing. I mean, of course, the snap mechanic kind of bears a lot of that too. But you're right. Like, it's going to be so frustrating because you're just going to toss your hands up in the air and just throw your cards out and say, whatever, let's just see what happens. And that's not very satisfying, is it?
No, at least not for me.
No, it does worry me a little bit too, because move is also one of those archetypes where the increments that they increase is so high and exponential that the more things you add to the decks that allow them to move can get out of hand really quickly.
I would also bet anything Dagger's getting nerfed.
Yeah, they probably need to pull those things down a little bit.
When they buffed her, they were like, and we think this might be temporary. And this is why.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a while, so
well, they didn't. They were probably designing this card around then, right? Like,
that's fair. I mean, like, you can just play move like I do, which is like as a bad bot, and just like you like watching your cards move around, and it also does a great job of getting through those missions for your alliance that are like move 26 cards in one game, and you're just like, all right, I guess.
Wait, how did they come up with those numbers? It's like move 5 million cards, discard 4. Like, what? What?
It is move 8 cards in one match. Is like very brutal. Like There's a reason
I
why
would-
those are always in the pool. That's why I'm gonna just say about alliances.
I have no idea what you're talking about because I never do alliance missions. I'm in a Cozy Snaps alliance, and I'm always last place.
You just get carried.
I was last place in our alliance last week because I played 0 games last week because I was so busy with family stuff. So, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we definitely have people in our alliance complaining about those missions. They're like, can people way up higher that are playing more, can you guys take those missions from us?
Don't make that be
everyone's going to want these missions when this month comes out. And so, all right. Glazer?
Aranya has become a 1/1 from a 2/2. Same exact ability, activate the next card you play, give the next card you play +2 power and move it to the right. We think, no one knows yet, as far as I'm aware anyway, we think activate means press a card to make a thing happen. No one's 1,000% sure of the timing of that.
Yeah, but I think the leading theory right now is that, like, clearly not the same turn you play it. You have to let it resolve on board for a turn, and then you're good to go from there.
Which is going to make cheaper mean an awful lot for these cards.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you play, for example, Symbiote Spider-Man, who's a 4/6 on turn 5, you just play it a 4/6, right? Like, because there's not a time to activate. At least that's the theory I've heard.
Yeah, me too.
So wait,
By the way, this is just like a forge with additional upsides, right? Like, isn't this just good?
Yes.
Hold on, Jess, you had a question.
Sorry for asking this question, but what does how does activate work? I haven't read that too much about it yet.
Press card. You play card and card resolves, right? Once the card is on board, you press it and its ability happens next turn.
Okay, so like playing this on 1, you would be able to use the ability turn 3.
I think. Right? Does that sound right?
Turn 2.
No. Turn 2, because it has to flip up.
Okay.
So,
I just spoke about Symbiote. You're definitely
you spoke, because that's, I think the Symbiote thing confused people, confused the issue. So it's like, if you played Symbiote on 5,
turn 6.
You could activate it on 6 and it would do its thing.
Right. Okay. So yeah.
Okay.
So
a
a 6-drop activate would do nothing. Would a 5-drop activate
or an
be dead?
play it on 6 too. Like, you can't play any of these on 6; they're meaningless. Yeah.
Would it? Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so if you play her on it, you can basically just make her be Iron Fist that goes right, but also gives +2. This isn't going to happen before on reveals. I would almost bet, because otherwise they just made Forge, and they had to nerf this Forge like 5 times.
I don't know. We'll find out. I think the thing I've said every single time we talk about activate, we cannot judge these cards until we know the stack of how on reveals and activates line up.
I mean, I can tell you
revealed cards.
It being a 1 is them pushing this card. Right? Like, this is the same as the Ghost Spider change, when Ghost Spider was a 2/3 and then became a 1/2. Like, it's the same concept.
They definitely want you to play this card.
Do we think it's good?
Yes. I do.
Yes.
Yeah, it's good. It's well, I guess I was thinking it would work with on reveals like Forge, but you've introduced a little extra doubt there. I can understand why it would not if they resolve where the on reveal hits first, and then, like Brood, for instance, you're not going to be able to Brood this. It's going to be a 4 and 2 2s for Brood.
If you could Brood
it's
this,
not going to have the sort of the Forge utility. It'll really just be a move enabler. But I mean, it's still a great move enabler as well. Like, it's still happy to hit a Human Torch or just a little bonus +2 while I'm moving my Vulture or whatever. It's going to be fine.
Well, and you don't have to do it right away, right? Like, you can choose just be like, I'm sitting here, and then you decide to do that. Although, again, until we know how this works with, like, I play this, then I play Vulture, then I play Ghost Spider, right? Like, I'm assuming this happens to Vulture, then Ghost Spider, but, like, until we know, this is going to be hard. This card is, I would bet almost anything, going to be very good about.
I think this is actually maybe just good generically as well. Mm-hmm. It's just a 1/3 effectively, and it gives you access to closed off locations. It's like maybe like Elsa lines and like weird little stuff, the kind of tempo Angela Elsa stuff is a possibility with this if that comes back. It just seems like it has a lot of flexibility.
it's priced to move. I think all of the activate cards are priced to move. Like again, the first time we talked about activate, I said this. They really want this new mechanic to be a success and be popular, right? Like Symbiote Spider-Man is super cool, right? Like, you are a combo like flashy deck player. Does Symbiote Spider-Man are you planning to make crazy content with him on day one?
I haven't planned anything yet. That'll happen Monday probably. I'll probably need to read some Marvel Snap Zone article to get some inspiration. But yeah, of course, I don't know what's cooking just yet. I mean, I always make a new video. By the way, price to move is the greatest thing I've ever heard. That's a fantastic font.
It's the new name of our podcast, just in case TM.
Yeah. Oh yes, I definitely came up with that idiom. Oh yeah, that's original to me.
Yeah,
definitely.
but applying it to here.
Yeah, the application's
the move. Yeah. All right. Let us move on to. Go ahead.
What was the original text of Scream?
Scream just was a 2/1. Just gets buffed to a 2/2. Very small change.
I actually thought this card looked crazy in my card
Me
review.
too.
I was
Me
like,
too.
it's net 4 every time.
Uh-huh.
And there's so many ways to move your opponent's stuff. You can do it 4 straight turns or whatever. It's not just like a counter to move. You can move them.
It's like a 2/17.
Yeah, I did the math. It was outrageously big for a 2-drop. I was stunned to see that this got buffed. I just could not fathom it.
No, now it's a 2/18. But yeah, agreed. Jess, any thoughts?
I think the slideshow froze for me. What is the card we're looking at right now?
Scream is a 2/2. When an enemy card moves, steal 2 power from it once per turn.
Enemy moves, steal 2 power from it once per turn. That sounds pretty good. That sounds like it's going to be a strong card, and they buffed this card?
They gave it one extra power. Like base power, so it's got less downside.
I guess this is just like their answer to when move gets too strong, but I don't know if that's gonna really be the whole thing for it. I think they're trying to make a whole low-key MMM scenario going on, and I don't know if that's going to be the case with this card. You definitely can get a lot of value out of it, but
if this is consistent, and I don't know how to tell if this is going to be consistent or not yet, right? But if this is consistent, if this deck doesn't completely fall apart if you don't draw Scream, I just think, and if you give most archetypes a 2/17, they're going to be good.
I think this card is wild because anything it's not when an enemy card moves to here or from here. It's just anything that moves an enemy card, their own effects or your effects, or just a random location, is really strong. For me, I think there's sort of 2 things that stand out to me. One, I think they think that the move cards are going to be super strong, and they want people to spend money to buy an easy point and click counter that at least feels good, whether or not is the right card to play to counter it. It will make you feel better that it's in your deck, similar to Cassandra, right? With Arishem, whether or not Cassandra nuked Arishem from orbit, clearly not, but people felt good. I know I felt good playing Cassandra against Arishem decks. The other thing is that they also want it to be its own archetype, right? This card is both an answer card and play Polaris, play Magneto, play whatever card. So I think it's super interesting that it is both of those things, and a lot of cards don't necessarily do that. And so I'm really interested to see if it ends up living up to the hype. But I'm definitely buying on Scream, which I wouldn't think I would say because I have no particular love for this character, despite being super cool in the new Spider-Man game. Or I guess not even new at this point because it came out a year ago. But anyway, she's cool in that game.
I'm excited for anything that makes it into archetype. I think Snap needs more archetypes, and Scream could.
So, is it going to make Arrow playable again?
Yep, I think so.
That's cool.
Juggernaut, Polaris, Spidey,
I've already played this deck like multiple times on YouTube.
I know.
Just for disruption, it's like kind of decent just to play decent stats and screw with people. And this
Would a
just gives it
218
like,
help it?
yeah, of course. Kingpin's 1 still too, right? As well. So
Yeah.
Kingpin even fits in here too now from a curve standpoint. So it's just perfect. It's crazy to me.
Right, Glazer, how has Misery changed?
Misery was a 5/10 and is now a 4/7. She still has the ability of on reveal, repeat the on reveal abilities of your other cards here, then destroy them. What do we think of the Misery change?
The only thing I saw for this card before was like Electro into the 5-cost Misery, and that seemed pretty cool. And now, like, you obviously can still do that, but it's just clunkier and smaller. So I don't know. I really noodled on this one a lot and couldn't figure out a lot of exciting lines for it. Obviously, there's like stuff with armor and all these things, and you get multiple Odins, and there's probably something cool here, but I just don't really see it. I don't know what it is yet.
So they changed this card to a 5 cost now.
It was originally a 5.
Originally a 5, now it's a
Okay.
4/7.
So it's like
It was a 5/10 before.
Yeah.
It almost feels like it's like a smaller Odin
Yeah, I mean, on some cards.
in some
For sure.
scenarios. I guess it could be useful like as another destroy activator as well. Getting destroy ramped up is always a good thing. I think a lot of the cards for the next couple months are going to be ones I'm going to want to get. So there's always going to be like this can be like an Absman effect almost as well. Like I think being able to repeat on reveals has always been a good thing at one point. In dedicated on reveal decks as well, but then it's also how meta will on reveal be at that point is the question as well. Like how many things are getting shifted to activate is as well.
That's a good question. I guess I'm more negative. I think the fact that they reduced the cost meant that it sucked at 5 cost, and was probably closer to Grandmaster, a card that we all thought like out of the box was going to be busted, and ended up needing to be changed to be kind of playable. I think they really do want they're making like maybe a good faith effort to make this card more playable, but now I'm kind of more skeptical of the card now because they felt like reducing the cost was necessary. So I am actually concerned that this card is going to be worse than it reads as.
I think it's going to end up having some sort of niche deck or niche style to play with, kind of like how Grandmaster outside of Bounce is kind of useless. There's going to be like one style archetype I think it's going to fit in. I don't know what that's going to be yet, but maybe they just figured they had to bring it down so that it can maybe extend into different decks.
Yeah, I can see that. Because I don't think it was going to end up being super playable as a 5/10. I thought it was really cool as a 5/10, though. And I think it's significantly less cool as a 4/7, which is a little sad. Alright. That one was quick. Toxin. This is the reason they nerfed Beast. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Toxin was a 3/2 and is now a 2/1, which is straight up a buff for this ability. It's now a 2/1 on reveal. Return your other cards here to your hand, plus 2 power for each return. So if you have a full location, it's a 2/7. Whereas before it would have been a 3/8. Any Toxin thoughts?
When I first reviewed this one, I said there's no reason to play this because it's a 3 and Beast is a 2, and the discounts are better. And now Beast is a 3 and this is a 2. So this probably gets the edge in my mind because you could play 3 things with it on turn 5 and like set up some interesting things. But I don't know. The cost reduction on Beast is what's so important that it's like because you want to set up for the big hit monkeys or whatever things late. I don't really know. This is still in a weird spot to me. I feel like Beast was just much better at doing what this wants to do.
They're finally getting you to Black Swan.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree. Like this, like the 3 cost is weird to fit in on a turn 5 Beast, and then it's like that cost reduction is so huge. So then it's like taking that one energy away. Is that going to outweigh the power and the extra cost reduction that Toxin provides? Like, is that really going to outweigh it? I don't think so. Like, I still think you're still going to want to run Beast and Toxin in your deck. It's just more of, I feel like I'd replace Falcon at this point.
There's so much clog. Falcon is so hard to replace. Everyone was replacing Falcon for a little bit in bounce, and .geo kept yelling at me. He was like, "Just keep Falcon in the deck. I don't care what people say." And then he cut it and won and regretted it and immediately went back. But like that, it's just because there's so much clog and you're trying to get 3 cards on a location to properly beast that like you leave yourself open to just losing a lot of games if you're cutting Falcon. I think you're stuck running all 3. What I was really, really, really excited to do before the change was to beast up a Toxin. And I think that is a way worse play right now than it was. I think that like that's significantly harder to do, and then like not have that beast be on your turn 5. Like when you were doing that, because you could beast on when Toxin was a 3, you could Toxin on 3, Beast on 4 really effectively, while still being able to replay enough stuff because Beast was cheap enough to get like the discount so that you can like sort of keep the cycle going. And I think that's just kind of gone. It's possible that is why they're changing the cost though, because like Beast to bounce Toxin, Toxin to bounce Beast, Beast to bounce Toxin, Toxin to bounce Beast seems like it could be a problem.
Yeah, like I was just thinking about it. It's like, what if you like, turn 3 Beast, turn 4 Toxin, pick that back up, and then you're just turn 5 Beasting right again. It's like,
yeah, that seems strong.
It seems pretty good.
Maybe I don't hate this that much. I still like that better with the cost reverse though, because the cost reduction was better on the cheaper one.
All right, let's move into cards.
This is also, last thought. This is also why we can't have old Beast effect back, where Beast was for the rest of the game. Because if you were able to re-Beast, you could make that 3-cost Toxin like a 1-cost Toxin, for example, by just keep piling up that. Okay, that makes sense to me. I hate this a little bit less now.
All right, let's talk about cards that we haven't discussed on the show before. The most controversial villain of MCU history, Gore, the God Butcher, is a 6-3 Series 5 6K tokens. Definitely a big bad. With the ongoing, +2 power for each on-reveal card in play. Regis, what you got for us?
Oh, this one's hard. I mean, of course, like Mr. Negative is everybody's first take on all these. It's a 0/6 that gets really big. That's pretty cool. If only it were a -3 cost and it gave you 3 extra energy. But outside of Mr. Negative, I had a really hard time mapping this out. Like, there's a ton of on reveal. It's the most common keyword in Marvel Snap, I think, by a mile, as far as I can tell. So, like, yeah, there's definitely bodies, but it's just like envisioning that and trying to figure out how big this is going to be on average seemed really hard to me. And I think I landed in a spot where I said it's maybe not quite as big as like maybe like a Red Hulk, for instance, if you're just playing it as a generic 6-drop threat and it's a little bit more inconsistent, which I think hurt it in my mind a little bit, but I'm really curious to hear what everybody else says because it was a hard one.
Yeah, it was definitely a hard one for me to kind of theory craft on, because I guess my first and biggest question for this card is, what is the state of on reveal going to be when this card releases? Like, how many cards are going to be activate and how many cards in the meta are going to be on reveal? Because if the number of on reveal cards becomes too low with too many things getting changed to activate, etc., then this card doesn't really have play outside of negative. So I don't really know. It's hard to say. Like let's say there's 5 on reveal cards on the board when you go to play at turn 6. Like, that's not a very good 6-drop. So it's kind of hard to adjust. I guess negative's the only thing I could really think of for it, to be honest. outside of that, it's going to be really hard to gauge, because like let's say there's like 10 on reveal cards on the board. That's a 6/17 coming down. Like that's a big card.
Wait. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
So it's tough to say, really. It's just, I guess it really depends on how many on reveal cards are being played in the meta when it comes out.
I mean, if you should be able to yourself get like 6 on reveals out if you're playing this card. I don't think this can be a generic 6 drop. This has to be a build around. Excuse me. I'm really sorry about that. Before we go further, by the way, this was Datamine as the season pass card, then not Datamine as the season pass card, and I don't know what's happening. Maybe this is like our next Deadpool's Diner thing. Maybe not. But like maybe this is something for our new whatever the Datamine packs thing are. Right? Like no one knows what any of that is, so we're gonna just sort of treat this as like it might be the season pass card and not worry about that. But there's going to be 2 season pass cards listed for November, just so people aren't like confused. It's because one was first Datamined as, and then another was later. So I don't think you stat something as a 6 -3 unless you tested it as completely freaking insane. My working theory is I don't know how this works. I would have looked at this and thought it would be terrible, except the like metacognitively, right? Like thinking about like why you do this, not like what the card says. You don't release a 6 -3 unless when you tested it, people were able to break this very, very quickly.
Yeah, I think there's logic to that, but at the same time, it could have been like a 6/5 that's like +1 power for you. You know what I mean? Like there's.
But they just did that. That was like Gilgamesh, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't think they want to release that same thing.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. In other words, they wanted to build more into the scaling than the floor. They wanted it to be a more dynamic result, I guess, right? Or more focused deck building. They wanted to make sure it wasn't generically good and it was specific to needing support because all the power is baked into the scaling, not the base. So that kind of makes sense.
You should be able to reasonably often get like 6 on reveal. Like, is this a werewolf top end?
I heard some people mentioning it with like Jane and like hammers and stuff too. Like,
yeah, I can see that too. Yeah. Oh wow, that makes a lot of thematic sense too.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah,
like, cause that's if you get both hammers, both Thor's Jane, that's like 5 for 6 right there, right?
Yeah.
Pixie. Okay.
Yellow Jacket's on reveal too.
Yellow Jacket's the best on reveal. I want Yellow Jacket to be good so bad. Yeah, there's something. This like again, like I just can't imagine them making a 6 -3 and being like, you know what, we're gonna make a -3 and it's gonna be bad. Like
yeah, like I know the obvious ones, like playing this in a negative deck, but I do think it'd be really strong in it. Like, what if you play Gore Mystique turn 6, and there's a bunch of things down, like that Mystique doesn't have -3.
I mean, Ravonna seems like it's if you can figure out the right number of on reveals there too, right?
Yeah,
like Sage,
Kate's
Sage,
really
Kate, yeah. Yeah, look, I'd be surprised if this isn't good. I think it's cool as hell.
I mean, it's just null for on reveals, right? Like,
sure, but on reveal is in a deck, and like I don't think this makes on reveal a deck. I think this makes a specific type of on reveal a deck, and maybe that's hammers, maybe that's something else. But I think that's cooler.
No, I mean it's a cool card, but like I think it's much closer in like space of where it's going to end up as like null for an on reveal deck. Like powerful, sort of stupid in the mirror, but like kind of narrow.
Goblins work well with this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
I can't wait to super scroll it. That's my.
Oh yeah.
More null shit, like
which is
actually it's also thematic that this is kind of an on reveal null because nulls and the sword. Anyway, next one is Sutter. I'm always can never pronounce Sutter. I can never pronounce this. May or may not be a season pass card. Series 5, 6K tokens. Either way, after you play a card, he's a 3/3. Yet Silver Surfer. After you
No.
play a card with 10 plus power, this gains +4 power. Jess,
the
what do you
best Silver
think?
Surfer 3-drop.
Yeah, another 3-drop. I don't think it's gonna get played in Surfer. I'm sorry about that one, Roy. But I do think this is gonna be a good card. Not good compared to some of the other ones we've seen, but just it's a small, it's an early game scaler, and those have always in the past had use. So it's just, what are you gonna play this in? Some sort of Scar deck that has a lot of 10 power cards coming out would probably be some sort of fit. It's hard to imagine the deck that it goes in off the top of the head, really. And how many 10
I know what deck it goes in.
Yeah, how many 10 cost
It's idiots.
cards are you going to put in it? It's like that deck is always going to be, you can make a fun deck with it, but that deck is always going to be kept in check by Shang-Chi. So I don't know if this card's ever going to really see much meta play, but I think it can do some work. You can have some fun with it. Yeah, it's reminding me of Speed a little bit, but it's not, because +4 is a huge increment. Like, you put down 2 10 plus power cards, like that's a 311 right there.
Which is also a free Scar.
Right. There you go. Like it's gonna be a big card. Just Shang-Chi usually is gonna keep something like this in check. It's just gonna make it more meta. I still think like a 311 coming down is gonna be huge. Like, you put this in some sort of like high Evo deck where you play Infinite She-Hulk turn 6. This goes up 8 power on the last turn.
Yeah. Regis?
Yeah, I like this one a lot. I think there is definitely that like big dumb idiots angle with Scar and stuff. And I will say too, on those, from playing those a little bit, I do feel like you hit such a critical mass of 10 power cards that sometimes Shang-Chi is actually, like, obviously it hurts, but it's like you're spreading so many and they're so affordable that you sometimes still get there over the top of the Shang-Chi, basically. And this actually gives you another weapon that's like can be Shang-Chi but can add so much power through it. But there's just a lot of big dudes in the meta these days. Like, we have a lot of big guys. We just talked about Atuma. We've got all the Alliance and the Red Hulks, and it doesn't take a lot. You like 2 big guys, and this is really nice. Like, a 311 is very big. So any deck that's able to squeeze in those big guys, you're talking about High Evo, you're talking about like Thanos, talking about Big Dumb Idiots. There's just a lot of different angles, I think, for Surtur. I think good in that focused build, but maybe expands beyond that as well.
I mean, like, if Thanos ends up good, I think Arishem's just perfectly fine playing this. I think this is just going to be a really powerful card. You don't have to trigger it more than once, right? Like, if you just say I have a 3-7, most games I'm happy, and if I can get this to 311 1 out of every 3 or 4 games, like, why isn't this better than Speed, right? Like, why isn't this better than Gladiator at that point? Like, I think it's right there with those cards, and I think it's better than those cards in the right shells. I think Surtur is going to be a very, very good and very, very frustrating card.
Also hard to predict a little bit too. It's like, oh god, are they?
You never know.
It can be.
I have faith in Surfer.
Forged into Gladiator.
There we go. Boom, done.
And then you get a Mockingbird down.
Yeah, you go Brood, Mockingbird, right? Because no, this has to be on the board, right? No, damn it. All right, whatever. Let's move on.
All right, Fenris Wolf, not the creature that causes the apocalypse in Norse mythology, but the thing that Hulk kills at the end of Thor Ragnarok. So, all right, 2 cost, 3 strength, Series 5, 6k tokens. We got an activate card here, friends. Resurrect the highest power card, discarded or destroyed enemy card to your side of this location. Thoughts, Regis?
I think it's got a potentially very big numbers for a 2-drop. Because as we know, we just talked about Shang-Chi exists, and you will be able to Shang-Chi stuff that's big, 10 plus power, and then resurrect it, kind of making this look like a 213. Plus, sometimes there might be a positive effect attached to that as well.
That's
That
a
said-
that's a 223 because it's also the negative 10 on
true.
your opponent's side.
Right. Well, that would be a 623, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you're right. Yeah, 623.
620.
Look,
620,
623 good stats.
Yeah. But the activate does, I guess, kind of preclude you from playing a Shang-Chi on turn 6, right? Because it would be too late for and that's often one of the better times to play Shang-Chi. Not always, though. Sometimes you can weave it in early. So I don't know. Shang-Chi seems pretty good, but I haven't really thought too much about it beyond that because I got so caught up in the Shang-Chi side of things. So I need to hear more insights.
So for me, with this this card, I have a deck that I've been working on for a little while now. It hasn't been good since the Zabu nerf, but I was able to take Moon Girl up to like top 200 before. And this is a card I want to put in that Moon Girl list. People are probably going to be like, what are you even talking about? And it's because that list will have Silver Samurai and Shang-Chi in it, and Moon Knight. So you're always going to be discarding something from the opponent, and you're always going to be able to have the opportunity to destroy something on your opponent's side. And I think because of that, it's always going to have something it can pull down. And I like this card. I think it's really interesting. It has high value potential, which is good. And even if you don't destroy anything, like how bad is it to just put a 2/3 down? It's not really. I like this card. I'm excited for it. It's one of the ones I'm more excited for because the last time we got a card that resurrects anything is Phoenix Force, and that's probably become one of my favorite cards in a while. So I'm super excited about Fenris Wolf.
I have a question about how this works. I just thought about something. Let's say your opponent discards an Apocalypse, and that's the highest power thing discarded, as Apocalypse often is. Resurrect right now doesn't work with Apocalypse, like in Hela, right? She doesn't resurrect an APOC
Correct.
that's been discarded.
Yeah.
Will this fail, or will it look for the next highest target?
I would assume next highest target, just like other cards do, right? Like Ghost Rider would try and grab at that point an Apocalypse and fail, right? Like, and it doesn't. It's like it's like it wasn't discarded because it ends up coming back to hand. So I would assume that would be the same thing. I'm gonna go out on a limb, and I think this is the next Grandmaster.
Oh,
I think this card's bad. I think this card's gonna be really, really niche and hard to use. It's so cool and powerful looking. And I think that like if it's any good, then we just move into like a movie like Silk move meta that like Shang stops being nearly as valuable in. And if it's like not good, like if you can't Shang, I think it's going to be really, really, really hard to use.
I was talking about like Killmonger Demon a lot, I think, when I reviewed this one. Like, hey, even if you just catch a demon, it's not bad, like a 2/9.
Sure, but like you better get that demon on the opponent's side, right? Like if you get that hood, right? Like,
well, it's always the highest.
Oh yeah, it's always the highest power. You're right.
Right,
okay, so the demon's not bad. Okay. Like if they play it in that order, right?
It is still like a sequencing thing. Plus, they're going to know it's there. Usually,
it's sitting on the board. You're just looking at it.
You're not going to want to wait to play it later. You're going to want to play it on 2. So they kind of know what's up.
I personally think this is one of those cards that's going to be like really hard to tell when it's beating someone. Like you don't know what's in your opponent's hand, right? And you don't know if they're going to play this big thing. And I think you're not going to know when you're beating your opponent with it. And it's going to be really hard to adjust. I think at the very least, this card's going to be really fun, right? Like if you put the work in to consistently kill your opponent's cards, and this is what and this is a pretty fun payoff for consistently doing that. Like, I think the quest at the core of this card is really cool. I actually just don't think it's going to be consistent enough to see high level play. Happy to be wrong. I think it's a cool enough effect that I think it would be fun to see in the metagame, but definitely this is not a card that I'm excited to spend premium resources on, but it's definitely a really cool card that I think will possibly have some implications for the meta if it could be shown to, like, besides Shang-Chi, there's enough consistent ways to destroy your opponent's cards or discard them, I guess, to make this useful.
I guess I have another question now. I had initially been operating under the assumption for activate that like you could like activate would always happen at the start of the turn, but you guys mentioned that on reveal might trigger first, which would actually still make a Shang-Chi on turn 6 possible, because you could play the Shang-Chi, then hit the activate, which does make me like this even more again. So
if that happens, all of a sudden my opinion changes, right? If this works so that like this can consistently work like with Shang-Chi on 6, it's going to be great. But like, if the activate, like maybe the activate triggers at the start and then it's like on the stack and resolves later, would be a reasonable theory here, right? Like, so the current thing that happens is it goes on reveal, location, character ability. So we don't know where activate fits in those 3, right? If it's character ability, then like would the start of resolution of you activating mean the Shang would have to already have been played? Like it's looking for something that's already dead. Like I don't know. That's like there's no way to know that right now, right? Like it's just
yeah, do we think it can be based on your actions? So like play Shang-Chi on reveal, then hit the activate button, and then play another on reveal later, and they all resolve in order? Or do we think it has to be separate on the stack from the on reveals altogether? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
we don't know.
Yeah, it's just like they could do that any way they want, right? Like, and Glenn came from Magic, so like it's not like he's not like intimately familiar with stacks of bullshit.
I think I personally, like, if I was asked to bet, I would bet that there's going to be an there's timing window, and this design there's 2 designs here that sort of like signal could go either way, right? Like I think the spider design is that it activates first, goes like activated abilities on reveal, boom, right? Because that would be really powerful, right?
Well, that one specifically says it re-triggers the on reveal.
Well, I was more thinking Aranya, right? Like that's it's like kind of like Iron Fist, right? This makes me more think that activate's going to happen after on reveal, right? Like you play Shang-Chi, whack something, Fenris shoots it back up. So like we are getting cards that clue both directions here in the data mines of like what the possible resolutions are. But because I think Regis's suggestion is too complicated for Marvel Snap, right? This is, if you're talking about like sitting on the toilet and remembering like, all right, I have to play this, click my button, play my next card, and then we'll sequence there. I think that
is literal, but that's how move works right now.
Yeah, and one of the that's what makes move dangerous, as we just said earlier. Like that's one of the things that makes move dangerous. Yeah. Like as a play experience, it's like fiddly. So,
yeah, I also don't think they want to mess around with stacks, but I don't know how you do activate without messing around with stacks, right? Like there's something missing here in the way this works that I just don't have. All right. We are on to, we don't know what the hell these are. I just want to shout them out. We know that 11, 12, and 11, 19 are Frigga and Malekith, and they're probably not going to be 0/0s, and they will probably have some kind of ability.
I hope they're 0/0s.
What a twist if they come out exactly
so
like
funny. 0/0 in Spotlight Catch just 2 weeks in a row. Let's go.
Frigga deserves better than a 0/0, but Malekith, come on. Like, come on, friends.
Jane Thor stocks going up.
Oh yeah, there you go. Oh, Jane Foster gets friggin' Malekith, and you're like, what do I do with these? I don't
know. Play a card.
Fills your hand, you don't get the hammers. You're like, what the what's this? That actually makes some sense for Malekith.
We got 2 actual cards to discuss here. All right, so
let's keep going.
Tombstone's a 4/6, Series 5, 6K tokens. Cost 1 if an enemy card was destroyed last turn. Miles Morales of Destroy. Spider-Jess, what you got for us?
I really like this card. I think immediate thoughts is it's going to go in my Fenrir deck with Moon Girl. Another Moon Girl target for me to put through. Yeah, I do really like this card, but you have to destroy an enemy card. So that's also the other downside to it. You're going to have to be able to Killmonger or Shang-Chi something, so how often are you actually going to be able to do that? I feel like you have
Lady
less...
Deathstrike.
Oh, that is true as well. But I do believe you have less agency over procking it down to a 1 cost than Miles Morales. So there is that to it. It's going to be a bit harder.
Regis?
Yeah.
Go ahead. If you want, sorry, finish your thought.
No, it's just going to be a bit harder to use than Miles.
All right, Regis.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly my sentiment as well. Is like I could see some clunkiness here. Fenris is sort of the same kind of payoff, right? Like I'm going to destroy a thing, I'm going to reap the bonus. Fenris is a big stat line. This is a discount. Fenris, I think, has a higher ceiling on that reward. Like it's a really big, crazy thing. And I like that you can kind of play Fenris preemptively and load it up and then reap that benefit, whenever you want later thanks to the activate. Whereas this is a little bit more conditional from a timing standpoint. Like, for instance, if you want to Shang-Chi something on turn 6 and that's when you want to destroy it, the tombstone, it's too late. you didn't get your discount or benefit or whatever. So it's just, and then like if you want to play a big 5-drop after you Shang-Chi on turn 4, there's no room for the tombstone. So it's just like weaving it in becomes a little bit harder when you have to sequence it with conditional removal that may not always line up when you want it to. May not always Killmonger on 3 or whatever. So I think it's kind of got that tendency to get stuck in hand because the timing window on it is so specific.
Why am I not just running Hydra Bob? Like, it's a 1 power difference, and I have to do what for? Like, I'm cool. Me and Bob are chilling.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a hard argument to argue against.
Thinking more about it, it's like it will get stuck in the hand. It's just, I guess, the only use is like how well will it actually synergize in a Fenris deck that's already trying to destroy the enemy cards.
But like,
that's not that often.
I mean, I guess, and you don't super want Bob with Killmonger, right? Like, so fine, but Bob is just like, I don't know, better.
Yeah.
Tombstone cracked with the stature text?
Yeah. No.
Like, if you did the thing, it's just 1 cost for the rest of the game.
No, but even then, it like. So my problem is, even with that, how much better than Bob is that? Like, the problem with making Bob a 1/5, making good 1/5s, is you've like limited so much else of the design space you have in terms of power for other cards. Like, because like people were playing Miles, and I was just like, why? And they were like, well, I don't have Hydra Bobs. Like, well, that's a really good reason. But like, why play these cards when you can just play the 1/5? That's always a 1/5 that I don't have to like play around awkwardly for my turns.
Yeah, the more I'm sitting here thinking about it, this card is going to be pretty clunky. Like, it's going to be, at best, have a niche deck that it fits into, and I don't even know if it's going to be that good.
Release it as a 4/8.
Hear me out. What if we make a 6/10 that gets cheaper in some way?
Oh.
-1 cost for every card you destroy. Wait a second.
Yeah.
All right, we are in just pure crack zone.
All right.
Let's move on to our final card for tonight. King Eitri is a 5/3 Series 5 6K tokens. On reveal, give the next card you play +4 power. Shuri at home, Spider-Jess. What do you think?
So this is... like, this doesn't sound that good at first glance. Like, give next card you play +4 power. Like, he's just a bigger forge. Like, what are you going to do? Play this turn 5 into a brood on turn 6? You just... That's not
That's
really...
exactly what they want you to do. Yeah, yeah, that's the plan.
Like, you might as well just gwenpool at that point. And hope
Why
that
not
it...
both?
Because what, you'd have to gwenpool and then King Eitri?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just don't see that lining up too well. I guess you like. Then he's just a 5/7 if you don't have any good targets. Like, I guess that whole power stack can be a big thing. But then it's like, what are you fitting it into with Brood? Like, Brood's best decks right now are Surfer or Patriot Surfer or Patriot Brood kind of thing. What other cards, like, I'm just trying to think of what other deck this would actually fit into outside of that, because you don't really want to stick this down turn 5 into a Brood. I think the card, like, I could be wrong about it because I haven't done a whole lot of theory crafting on this, but I don't think this is going to be that good of a card.
Regis?
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. For the record, I don't think the Brood thing's terrible. That's what, like an 18 power Brood, I guess. You still have room for Surfer on 6, so there's like something there if you can get enough 3s down before that or whatever for another lane. But it's very like, that's a one line in one deck kind of thing. That might be hard to get there. I actually am not even sure this card is the final version. As far as I know from these, this card's been in the game forever with this text, right?
Oh, really?
And then this round of Datamines just added the artwork, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think that's what when I was researching on Marvel Snap Zone, by the way. I think I don't know that 100%, but I think this has been the same text for this guy for like 2 years or something, and they just added new art. So I'm not sure they updated the text yet. In other words, this kind of feels like a first pass text line from like 2 years ago. They have a bunch of those in the game. But I don't know for sure. That's just a theory.
I have no idea who this character is.
He's played by
dwarf guy.
He's played by Tyrion in Infinity War.
Oh, he's
one
the
of
guy who made the hammer
of Need of Valir or whatever.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
Tyrion from Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
Peter Dinklage played him in Infinity War.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he makes Stormbreaker then.
So he's
got it. Yeah, I know who it is.
So he's like a dwarf?
Yes.
Oh.
He's the king of the dwarves.
Oh. I don't know.
The Asgardian dwarves, not the Tolkien dwarves.
All right. Either which way, this card is going to be better than people think if they released it just as is. +4 is just a lot. Like, +4 is just a lot. Like, you do this into the Panther, and you fundamentally doubled the Panther. You like especially if you can activate, so you could do this and then like trigger and activate to do something else with the card. Like, there's a lot of ways I think to really end up taking advantage of this. 4 is just a lot. Whenever a number gets bigger than they usually do by enough, I'm like at least paying attention, and I think this card would be decent. I also think this is reasonably likely because this is a character that, like, I'm a fairly big Marvel geek. I was like, who the hell is this one? They're reasonably likely to shove into one of those like new ways to get us cards that seem to be coming. Or at least that's my working theory.
I don't think, who is going to sit through a version of Deadpool's Diner for a King Eitri card?
Cassandra Nova. I mean, at least she was in a movie. Fine.
She's in the big Deadpool movie. And he attached to one of the most famous Grant Morrison X-Men runs.
Fine. It's only one Grant Morrison X-Men run, but yeah.
Right. Well, most famous X-Men runs in the form of Grant Morrison. There we go. Be more precise with my language.
Fine. I think this card's going to be good. I don't know if it's going to come out this way. I think this card's going to be good. I want it. All right. That's that.
All right. So, speaking of Thor characters, Destroyer. All right. This is the final major segment of each and every week where the variant of the week. All right. So, Destroyer. Who picked the one on the left here, which is the sort of, I think that's the cover from the Walt Simonson run, right?
Yeah, that's me because it's the Walt Simonson run, and that's one of my favorite comic runs ever. I want that variant very badly.
Is it in the game?
But I want it. No, but it will be. It will be. It's datamined, and they can't be a spotlight cache because Destroyer is Series 3. So I'm gonna buy it. It's my plan.
Oh, I really. Second dinner. Please make it the most expensive possible bundle, please.
Ultimate variant incoming?
Ultimate variant, yes.
I've never bought Ultimate variant, but yeah. All right.
what absolute troll put in the original Destroyer art? Like, that's
First person
that's
ever.
why I was laughing. Well, I got asked what my favorite Destroyer variant is, and I famously don't use variants in videos or anything ever. I never use variants. So I said, well, I guess the base variant, because that's what I always use. I actually think it's probably the vintage comic art one. If I were gonna really say, I love the vintage comic art ones. I don't have the same attachment, but that one actually looks pretty cool. But it just seemed fitting to use the base.
I mean,
art.
it's pretty good base art as far as Marvel Snap
Yeah,
base art
it
goes.
is.
I was amused. I was like, fucking hey, no one's ever done that. Let's do it.
I picked the hip, which is the third from the left here. I mean, it's a hip. It's a good hip. I use it. It's awesome. All right, Spider-Jess. Why did you pick this one?
This has been one of my favorite Destroyer variants for a long time, and actually, I haven't seen the one that Glazer picked, that comic book one yet. But the reason why is because he's wielding Thor's hammer, and it actually sparked like a big discussion one stream about like, wait, like why is Destroyer wielding the hammer? Like, how can he wield the hammer? Like, haven't been too big of a comic fan before getting into Marvel Snap, so I didn't know. So we had a whole discussion, and it led me down a rabbit hole of learning a lot more about Destroyer after the fact, and it's actually because Odin created him. So that's a fun fact for everyone. But yeah, I love the variant. Sparked conversation, got me more into Marvel.
It's like a really good reason to like a variant, by the way.
Yeah,
I don't.
Yeah, I feel like a total jerk now.
I don't have that good of a reason for liking many variants, like that big of a reason. There's very few. So like that was like an immediate answer for me as soon as I saw that question.
Amazing. Look at Glazer.
I'll be honest,
making
that one gives me flashbacks of Nexus events, though. Isn't that the Nexus event variant from way back in the day?
I wasn't around for it.
Yeah,
I started at Global Launch.
Oh, I think it was a Nexus event variant, so that's bad flashbacks. Sorry.
Nothing's perfect.
I opened this one. I think I opened that one, the Thor's hammer one, but I don't know. All right, so as we move to close up the episode, we sort of remind our loyal listeners, loyal viewers, how they can engage with our guests. We'll start with you, Jess. How can our loyal listeners and loyal viewers become your loyal listeners and loyal viewers? And what would they find if they tuned into your content today, tonight, whenever they're listening or watching this?
So, as you guys know, you can find me at Twitch TV /SpiderJess _AKA_JX5N. Type of content you'll find. We like to, have fun a lot of the time, but lately it has been getting sweaty at times, but we do have to take breaks from that. I can't push ladder every single month, so when we're doing the breaks, we like to have fun, do more, friendly battles with viewers and stuff like that. But yeah, Glazer seems to think I'm pretty good at Marvel Snap, so I guess I'll keep trying to get better for you guys and getting more content in the future for you guys to watch.
I mean, I don't think she's very good at Marvel Snap. I know she's very good at Marvel Snap. She's peaked at like top 30 in the world or so. Am I wrong here?
No, you're right. We did get there in the June season.
So I'm just saying, like that's not like a my opinion thing. That's why I'm like, can you stop pretending you're not good? Like just because you don't push rank every season, I pushed rank exactly once, got to 250, and now I'm like, well, that sucked. Never doing that again. Pushing rank is obnoxiously time consuming. If you and then you see the games played because everyone posts their end of the season. Here's my stats thing to get the 300 credits, and you're like, oh, you played 7 times as many games as I did. You have fun with that nonsense. Thanks, though. However, you are not only very good, you're an extremely entertaining streamer. Your stream is always fun. The conversation is great. It veers in all sorts of directions, from really high level Marvel Snap content to just discussions of comic lore to life talks and just sort of getting to know and caring about the audience. It's genuinely really high level content, and part of the reason I'm really to have you on with Regis is for some reason that guy's going to generate some attention, and you deserve a lot more attention, and I hope this generates it for you because your content is excellent.
Don't make me cry, Glazer.
I'm about to cry. That was beautiful.
Sorry.
That was beautiful.
It was very touching. All right. Well, let's. If any of our loyal listeners and loyal viewers aren't already loyal listeners and loyal viewers of Regis, where would our folks find you, and what content would they find in what you're producing?
I'm on YouTube. I go by Regis Killbin, and I make Marvel Snap videos where I play all kinds of stuff. Mostly fun decks or just things I'm like trying new cards or whatever. But sometimes I spotlight like really cool decks from people like Jess that are doing awesome Marvel Snap things. So kind of a mix of everything, but pretty chill. I think easygoing. Not the most skilled player, but hopefully skilled enough to teach some people some things here and there, and hopefully have some fun while doing it.
Yeah, that's also bad humility. You're good at, like, again, because you don't care. Like, there's this there's this thing that some people have that, like, if your number no go up too high, you can't be really good at this. Yes, you can. There are thought processes to this that you display literally every video. Like, it's not a mystery that you're, like, actually really good at this. You just don't care to make number go brrr, which is fine. But that's honestly not why I watch your content, and I watch every video. I don't have a lot of free time, and I try and watch a little bit of everyone. I do a reasonably good job at staying in touch with the community, which is probably an understatement. But, like, I watch every one of your videos. Because you, and I mean this from the absolute bottom of my heart, part of the reason you're here is you have a generosity in your spirit. It's why you credit when it takes work. It's like, I've seen streamers become monetized because you put their name in your video. Like, you don't have to do that. But not just then, just every time you interact with people, there's a kindness and a genuine honesty to it, and like, it shines through your content. It's hard to imagine someone deserving success more than you, just literally because of that. And it genuinely, and I mean this like so seriously, warms my heart to have you on to like get to tell you that, because I love your content.
Oh, thank you. That's very nice. My instinct is to say I don't deserve all that praise,
But you do.
but I recognize it's meaningful. So I really thank you. That's quite nice. I feel like that's such a low bar to clear. Like, crediting people, like, that just seems like the most obvious. I feel like I don't do enough. So I'm glad that's made
like,
a small impact. But I wish I could do more.
That's an example. That's like not like you're on. We're for Marvel Snap, a mid-sized podcast compared to, like, you genuinely seem to help people and seem to care about people. Like, when there's a controversy on Twitter about Marvel Snap thing X, and you speak, there's a genuine honesty to it that like is, and what you're saying is almost always, I care about people, and I think that is extremely valuable.
Well, I appreciate that. I try my best. I mean, it's there's like some responsibility when you're a bigger content creator, I think, to like be a representative or voice or something, to like try to stand up for people, which is hard. It's like, you don't know always the right thing to say, and you don't know what you're supposed to do. And even though I've been doing this for a long time, you don't really learn what's right, but you just kind of have to use your compass of some sort, and like, you just think about the people and go from there. And it's like, I'm just hoping I do okay. So I'm glad to hear at least some of the time I do okay. So thank you.
And this actually called to mind to me something else that happened with another major creator this week. Eggs has stepped away from Marvel Snap. I just want to take a moment, because as Egg steps away from Marvel Snap, to say that she has been an amazingly positive and wonderful person in this community and will be missed so very much. So if you ever want to watch a really great variety streamer, please, please, please go check out Eggs. Eggs is an incredible unit. Sorry. That this conversation of like trying to make a difference brought to mind Eggs, and I didn't want to, like, since she's stepping away from Snap, I don't know if I'll have an opportunity to say that again.
Eggs is great. Great
I
guest
love
on the
Eggs.
show.
I didn't know she was
Always
stepping
enjoyed
away.
her content for Marvel.
Still doing content, just not Snap.
Well, good luck to her in her future endeavors.
Mm-hmm.
And if I do have to comment on Regis before we wrap up here, You have taught me so much in Marvel Snap that you don't even realize because we've never really interacted before. But when I started playing the game, your videos were what got me into Marvel Snap and actually learning down that path. So I just want to say, like, you've probably helped people more than you realize in this game.
That's very good to hear. I need someone who's so talented to know that I even had a small impact is awesome. Thank you.
All right, hard pivot into what I sweat for every single week, which is listening to Glazer list as fast and as few breaths as possible all of our awesome patrons. So let's see how he does this week.
I'd like to thank you to Abigail Kiesel, Manager Burnout, Cable Sir Regardless, David J. Winfield, Direwolf, LAB, FaThorNewman, Good Dog Gamer, Deuce Vault, Inc., I am Frostman, Jane Everett, Corbin, Prime Brian, Ryan Burke, Heretics Lee, Coy Black Dahlia, Great. Pyrofros, The Goat Seeker, Deadman Falcon, Quid Pro Joe, Docty, who you should check out on YouTube, Fat Nick, Ginger Prime, Philip Racco, Haplo, Kenny Loggins of the Danger Zone, Rob Silverman, The Biz, Extra Fiend, Skippy G, Tommy Nyquist, King of Bros, The Great Kazoo, Jessica Gamble, Ryan Wood, Kevsey Hoda, Ludacris, Quantum Quinn, John Q, Climb, 8th Sage, Models, Mod Supreme, Darth Tater, Joe P, Brian Kaufman, Tristan H. Martin, Jason B, JD McDonaldino, The Fuzzy Donald, Spectrix, Hoot, Matt H, DJ Mikey Hedging, Snowflex, Oculars, Christ Derry, Seamus, Jonesy, Two Ties, The Great Lorma Devs, The Pirate King Tuccrr, The Homie Man, and of course Gunny T, where the T stands for. I was a little slower that week.
Yeah, I counted 3 whole breaths. All right, friends, that does bring us to the end of this episode where I get to have the distinct pleasure and sadness to say goodbye to our awesome guests. Jess, it was really great having you on the show this week. You're always welcome on anytime. You were an amazing guest. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me on here. It's been a blast. And I will see you guys around.
Well, I get to say a quick thing about Regis here too, because I've enjoyed Regis's content across multiple games. I just want to say that you live up to the sort of hype you present on your videos. So it's awesome having you on the show and really appreciate you having on. And you are definitely, just like Jess, we'd love to have both of you back on anytime.
Well, are there going to be a lot of compliments like this time?
Depends if it helps or not.
Yeah. Well, we actually, one of the things that is different about our shows, we do actually usually end on a positive note. So that is the positivity we put out here.
Yeah, if I'm ever feeling down, I'm definitely going to have to come back and get talked up a little bit.
Nice.
It's been very nice to hear. By the way, the Patreon list there made it worth it. That was amazing. That was cool.
Thank you.
I hadn't stuck around to that part before, but that's impressive. Yeah, well, thank you guys for having me a ton. It's been super fun, for real. It's been great.
Awesome. All right, final thing to do each episode. Glazer, thank you so much for joining me each and every week to record this show. It's a true pleasure.
Peace and love, everybody.
All right, friends, we are actually done with this episode. I may or may not be on next week's episode. I have a wonderful IRL helping colleagues, all that kind of stuff thing that I'm doing next Thursday. So I might be here. I might not be. Either way, we will be back. And until then, make good choices, stay safe, and keep on snapping.